Yo, welcome on in, golf fans. It's your boy Luke here with our round 4 prop stream for the Rocket Classic. Gonna get you guys ready for all of your prop betting exposure in terms of stat averages, a weather report for tomorrow's exposure. Also gonna go through the Underdog and Prize Picks boards, matchups on the sports books too, to get you guys ready for anything that you plan on entering. So first off, hopefully this Saturday is treating you guys nicely. Got some UFC on, so we're gonna keep this one a little bit quicker. I'm actually headed to a buddy's house after we get out of here to watch some of the main card fights. So we got some potential sweats on the DFS side there, and of course Sunday at the Rocket to sweat out too. So here in this live stream, we'll go over any specific bets that you want me to deep dive, and of course all the conditions for Sunday too. So it'll be the averages, pins, weather, you name it, getting a really good idea of exactly how this golf course is going to play. And then of course a few bets that I've placed too. And I see they got Chris down there nice and early, a question that we'll go through later. Got Joseph W. Hoover as well. We had the one-liners earlier. Philbo, Steven, Joe as well down there. Let's have ourselves a Sunday. And it looks like Joe's got himself a pretty good sweat there. Let's have ourselves a Sunday. So best of luck out there. And smash the like button you guys haven't already as well. You can see Steven is already on top of that. Let's pump up those numbers. But the averages from today, we're going to start with the PGA side. And then we're also going to go through the live golf stuff and do a slip on that angle as well. But Rocket Classic played a little bit harder today. So overall, a minus 1.8 scoring average. But for tomorrow, it does look a little bit less windy. So the birdie average is probably going to improve. It did drop to about 4.14 per round. And the wind forecast ended up being a little bit off, I would say. It was definitely windier than what they were calling for, which was the main cause of this difference. And of course, the absence of lift clean in place. So even though I do think the scoring is going to improve, it's not going to get to like a -3 scoring average. So you'll see in the forecast that it's pretty much sub 7-8 miles an hour the entire day. I think a -2 to a -2.25 scoring average could be in the cards. But without lift clean in place, it's not going to be as good scoring as rounds 1 and 2. So birdie average probably goes up to like 4.5 per round, I would say. Bogey or worse average could drop to like 2 per round, but not drastic changes in either direction. And I would say it's probably going to go up to like 4.4 birdies per round. Bogey average probably goes to like 2.05, 2.1 per round, maybe not even as far as what I was calling for before, because the weather conditions really aren't all that much different. So I'll show you the exact specifics in a second, but fairway average was 8.86 per round, and the green average was exactly 13 per round. So all a little bit more difficult than days 1 and 2, which was to be expected with that kind of forecast. Next thing we'll look at would be, let's get to Detroit and get onto the golf course so I can show you the correct forecast. But what you'll see is that it's going to be calm the entire day. So sub 6 miles an hour of sustained winds, wind gusts below 10 miles an hour for the entire day as well. So whether you're a morning player, an afternoon player that's in form, you're going to have an ideal golf course to attack, which unlike the 10 to even 15 miles an hour winds they were playing in this afternoon is why I think scoring is going to improve. And on top of that, we also have pin locations that don't look that terrible. And I don't have the pin sheet up now. We're not going to go through it together as I do have to get to some of those things that I'm getting to tonight, watching the UFC fights and all, but the pin locations weren't all that bad. Like in fact, hole 2 was the easiest pin by far that we get at that hole. Some of the par 5s look especially scoreable, aren't on top of shelves like they were for today. So I would say the pins could even be a little bit easier than what they were for round number 3, which is wild to say after a moving day setup. So it's looking like whether it's the weather, whether it's the pin locations, all of it is lining up for these guys to go particularly low. So as you can imagine, I'm going to be taking a lot of positive stance plays as you would typically want to do at an easy golf course like this, but especially when conditions are trending towards the easier side of things. So the first slip we're going to take is going to be on the underdog side, and it's 2 unders on strokes that I mixed in. So it's a Chris Kirk and then a Ben Griffin, and we'll start with the Kirk one, who's at 69.5 strokes. So he's got to shoot -3 to cover that, which is, in my opinion, going to be about 1 shot's gain to the field or 1 stroke gain to the field, which is a well above average performance, right? Gaining a stroke, but it's within Chris Kirk's outcomes or range of outcomes when he's got an elite tier course history around here. He's got some of the most experience out of anyone in the field. He's a top 10, a top 20 machine around Detroit Golf Club. And today he gained in the 3 tee to green categories very prominently with his approach play, was one of the top 20 iron players in the field today. but could not buy a putt for his life. And that's kind of atypical for him around here, as if you take a look at his track record at this golf course, he typically gains a half a stroke to a stroke per round any given year. So I would expect him to bounce back rather quickly in that department. And the rest of the game has been consistent for rounds 1 through 3. So for him to gain a stroke to the field, I don't think is asking too much. It would be asking too much from some of like the lower tier players, but for somebody of his caliber, I'm comfortable taking that. And then the other prop I mixed in was this Ben Griffin under on strokes, who's the number 1 form player of anyone in the field. In fact, you take a look at the last 12, the last 24 measured rounds heading into this event, he's number 1 in both categories. And that's even comparing to your Cantlays, your Colin Morikawas of the world. It's easy to do that when you've won twice over the last few months, but even outside of the wins, Ben Griffin has been a top 25 machine. So he's going to have to gain probably 1.5, 2 strokes to the field to cover that kind of line, which is a little bit more aggressive than with a Chris Kirk. But we're talking about literally the number 1 player when it comes to golf over the last few months, at least in this kind of field. And honestly, even if you compare him to the major championship caliber fields like we had a couple weeks ago, he was still top 5 in the form heading in. So you're talking about somebody that's on one of his all-time sort of heaters. Today, he wasn't particularly dialed in. He shot a -3 bogey-free round, but if conditions are going to get a bit easier, he's got to make up room to try to get into contention. I like his chances to improve on what was a little bit of a sluggish round 3. So he's at 68.5 strokes. And I guess it's worth noting with both of these players that they're -130 on DraftKings for their under right now. So if you're looking for a potential plus EV lean, it's not quite into that -135, -140 zone that we're typically looking for on that, but -130 is at least a lean in that direction, on top of the traditional analysis on both players, both making quite a bit of sense. So I think the pins, the weather, all being conducive for low scores, and on top of these two just playing solid golf. And it's not even just this week for Chris Kirk. You guys may remember, or maybe not, because it was very sneaky, that Chris Kirk did finish in 12th place at the US Open at Oakmont, and Oakmont is far from a good course fit for Chris Kirk. So for him to have found a way to somehow finish in the top 15 in one of the strongest fields in golf, if not the strongest field of golf, and in a golf course that is tailored for somebody much longer off the tee than he is. And he's shown up this week, and he's at a golf course that he plays well at. That's why I like him too, on top of the number 1 form player. So that was it for the PGA side. That's going to be the one slip that we're taking for that. Of course, guys, I'm going to be playing a lot more slips for the Rocket Classic. You guys can find the rest of those over there on my Patreon page. But the next slip that we're going to go through after I go through any specific bets that you want me to deep dive is going to be the live golf side of things. So I've got a whole slip for that, and that's going to be on the prize pick side of things. But before we do so, let's see if there's any PGA based questions. And after we do the live golf stuff, we're going to do matchups as well. So for any of you sportsbook people, we'll be getting to that. And see, Lauer vs. Aldrich parlay. Let's get it. Yeah, man, we've got the Aldrich top 5 this week, hoping that it works out. And yeah, I guess you parlayed those two with the matchups, huh? That's probably what you're referring to there. It worked out quite well. So yeah, cheers to you, man. And he said, who do I actually think wins? I mean, that's a tough question. I have to say Aldrich because I bet him to top 5. I'm so high on him this week, but it's a crapshoot. I really think anyone can win that's within 4 or 5 shots when there's -8 to -10 rounds out there. So I would say it's rather unpredictable. I wouldn't be betting somebody if I'm looking to live bet, if that's why you're asking. That's low odds. Like anyone that's less than 10 to 20 to 1, I would sprinkle maybe a long shot or two, because I do think that there's a potential winner that could come from quite a long ways back when you're playing a golf course that's got low scores like this. And, you know, it would be different if it was Scotty Scheffler that was leading the field. Potgieter has shown a lot of nerves on Sundays when he's been in this situation before, which has happened already twice this year. And in both instances, he was mediocre to say the least on a Sunday. So yeah, I would probably look to a chaser, but I don't really have a name that stands out. I mean, I hope Potgieter wins, but I have a sneaking suspicion that it could be somebody further back. And yeah, you got Potgieter at 120 to 1. I hope he pulls it out for us, man. It would be a heck of a week, that's for sure. And then on the live golf side, guys, it did play a little bit easier in round 2. So the wind conditions weren't as bad, which we did see it. I just didn't think it was going to make as drastic a difference. So rather than playing 1.7 over par, it only played 0.36 over par. And the birdie average got to almost 4 per round. Round 1, by the way, it was like 3.26 per round. So again, pretty big difference from day to day, which I did not think it was going to be that drastic. ended up working against me in a few cases, which was definitely unfortunate. But for tomorrow, it's the same kind of forecast where they're calling for some wind, but not nearly as much wind as what we had for round number one. So I have a hard time thinking it's going to play this easy again, especially because it just threw me off so much today, especially with like a Sunday pin setup. They'll probably try and make things a little bit harder. I think it's going to play in between what we saw on days 1 and 2. So day 1, obviously 1.7 over. Today it was like 0.3 over par. I think between 0.75 and 1 stroke over par would be the range that I would give for the Live Dallas event. So birdie average, also kind of splitting it down the middle between those two, probably close to like 3.5, maybe 3.6. Birdies are better per round. But it's going to be a little hard to gauge because this is the first time that we've seen this golf course. But I think the prudent thing to do, especially with this kind of forecast, would be to split the middle between the first few days. So I would say easier than round 1, but maybe not quite as easy as today. And the result of that are these two props on the prize pick side. So it's an over on Bubba Watson strokes at 72.5, and then an over on Dustin Johnson at 3.5 birdies. So the idea with DJ with the birdie list is that he's number 7 on that tour this year. So not quite elite, but he hasn't even had a good season, and he's number 7 at making birdies on the tour. So I think the average, if I think the average is going to be like 3.5, 3.6 per round, he would be a solid lean towards the over right there. And he's played well this week. He's gone over that number in both rounds so far. And that's despite him not even getting into contention. So I think a lot of different data points pointing towards the positive here with DJ. And then on the flip side, I've got this over on Bubba, who is shot over par in both rounds, so would have gone over this kind of line. And he's not the most accurate driver in the world. He sprays it a bit. He tends to have some wide misses. That's why a lot of his best course history courses tend to be tracks where you can get away with being a little bit wide off the tee. And that's not the case with Maridal. Maridal, you have lost ball central. He could be really in trouble if he ends up having a tee shot that goes too far awry. And on top of that, conditions, Sunday pin locations, if it does play like 0.75 to a stroke over par, he'd have to gain 0.75 to 1 stroke to the field to go under this kind of line. And for the year, he's losing strokes on average on the Live Tour. In fact, losing close to a half a stroke per round on the Live Tour. So I would project him for closer to even like 73.5 strokes, maybe even like 74 strokes if conditions are towards the harder end of that spectrum, which is why that was a no-brainer over for me. So because we have the over and the under, it does give you a 3x payout. So this one is a little bit of anti-correlation, but I think it's fair given that DJ is an above average player and Bubba at the stage of his career. Right? No offense, I love Bubba. He's one of my favorite players in the world. That first Masters he won was one of the golf tournaments that really got me even more so into watching professional golf. But I'm going to take a stance against you, my man. So it's partially the golf course, partially the fact that, you know, it's no longer 2005 or whenever that took place. And those are the two slips that we're going to take on the Pick'em sites. So just like we had on the PGA side, guys, any other pieces of exposure that I'm entering, and there will be probably a handful more that I'm entering, make sure to check out the Patreon page for that. There's a link down below to join the Patreon page. And it's only $15 a month, right? It's not like a lot of the other tout sites out there that cost an arm and a leg for my exposure. Not only do I post every single slip as I'm getting to them, but also the stat averages for every single round. Also, weather reports. I post those for every single golf tournament that you're researching to help you out with your entire process. And on top of that, give you guys all the reasoning, all the edges that I'm using to find these kind of bets to make you a more educated and better of golf overall. So make sure to check that out as well. Then the last thing we're going to do is try and find a matchup to enter. And I was going through the board a little bit earlier, and I wasn't having as much luck as what I was hoping for, because a lot of the bets I liked were minus money bets, which in general, I'm not usually a huge fan of betting like minus 150, minus 170 favorites on matchups. I normally look for an underdog that is maybe an unjust underdog, somebody that should either be a coin flip or maybe even a slight favorite and is plus money. And I didn't see any of them before I got on here. And I'm just doing one last check through it to see if there's anything obvious. If not, we're probably just going to build a small little parlay using some of the minus money ones that I liked. So just doing one last little gander throughout the board. And yeah, my preconceived notion of a lot of the value being on the minus money side seems to be correct at this point. So yeah, we're probably going to go with the minus money parlay method just because it'll be a little bit easier to pull off for this. And yeah, just kind of scrolling through these, that is going to be the case. So let's start with it. Let's go. Jake Knapp with his ball striking this week, especially the last 2 rounds. It's been spot on. He's one of the more experienced players over the last 2 years at actually getting into this situation. There are guys up there that have literally not been in contention at all the last few years. So let's throw Knapp. He's only minus 122. So like it's not the worst kind of juice that we're eating there. It's who else was it? It was Ryan Gerard minus 145. Matt McCarty, love McCarty, high upside player, but it's been all putting for him this week, or at least mostly the putter. Gerard, on the other hand, has been almost all ball striking. So I'm always going to side towards the player that's doing it in a more sustainable fashion. And Ryan Gerard, undoubtedly, with how he's actually swinging, is the more sustainable of those two players. Let's go Cam Young at minus 145. I was kind of eyeing that one too. He's, in my opinion, should be a bigger favorite over Whaley. We attacked Whaley today, and it worked out with the Justin Lauer bet. We're going to do it again tomorrow with Cam Young, who's obviously an even better player than Justin Lauer. Has elite TR course history around here too. Second place and a sixth place finish his last 2 starts. So that'll be another one of those minus money legs that we're adding to this. And that might be it. I mean, of the ones that are at the top, these are guys that are out of form that I'm not going to trust as much. We're going to make it these 3, which if you played them on DraftKings would be plus 423. I'm going to have to see what I can get on Hard Rock Bet. Of course, that's where I can bet a lot of these sort of matchups. And the ones I end up actually betting, I do post on my Patreon page now. And also on the Discord channel that's a part of my Patreon too. I end up posting any sort of Hard Rock Bet exposure that I'm adding, which a lot of times ends up being matchups like this, like we talk through on these live streams. But every now and then they do post birdie props and strokes props on the Hard Rock Bet site. And it tends to be rare. They only do it for like the signature events and majors for the most part. They did it for round 2 this week though. So like it's hit or miss. Sometimes we get that exposure too. I post all of those over there on top of that. So make sure to check that out if you guys haven't already. We're going to go through any last second bets if there are any to go through. And if not, I'm going to hop on out of here and get on to watching that UFC stuff. But a lot of other exposure as I get to it this evening will be posted on the Patreon page. Luckily, I can access Patreon from my phone. So anything that I'm adding tonight will be able to get that out there. Let's see. Join the Patreon, people, you said, but only if you want to win money. Yeah, man, if you want to lose money, definitely don't join the Patreon page because it's not going to be good for that. But like you said, if you actually want to win money, it's the place to be, man. I appreciate the kind words about that. And I guess on that note, let's get this live stream over with. That's all I got, guys. Best of luck with all of your exposure for Sunday. Let's hopefully cash out on as many of those props as humanly possible. And then on top of that, maybe take down a GPP or 2. I've got some lineups that are in contention in the big DFS lineups, which speaking of, on the Patreon too, of course, there are all the showdown projections posted there. We've got a sweat there. We've got the top 5 bet on Aldrich, real big one too. It's one of the biggest top 5 bets I've ever placed. So I'm hoping he can pull through for us. It's a nice hefty payout if he can get into that top 5. Hopefully don't chop it either, right? We want just the top 5, no ties, no sort of chopping going on because that would drastically hurt our payout. Let's see if we can get those over the finish line. But as I said, best of luck with everything. Appreciate the support in the channel as usual, guys. And I'll see you guys for all the content next week.